Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. And before we begin, I want to give you a challenge. And the challenge is this. Leave a comment down below of how you found my channel. I'm really curious and I want to find out. And also, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me as well. So today we're going to be doing the interactive pricing component challenge from Frontend Mentor. So you can head over to frontendmentor.io/challenges, and it's actually at the top. It's the second row. So this is the challenge we're going to be doing, and you can just click this, and you can click on the Start Challenge button, and you can click on Get Started, and you can download the starter file. Now you can see that this is my second attempt. I've just submitted the completed solution, my solution right now. And if you head over to my GitHub, the repository is called Interactive Pricing Component. So again, the URL is https://sancthomas/interactive-pricing-component. Now I'm going to leave this tab open because I want to have access to this slider.css file, and the slider.css files contains our toggle which we're going to create. It contains our toggle, and it contains our range input, which is basically the slider, which is the challenge for this project. So I just want to leave this open so that I can just be able to copy directly from it and then just paste it in the project. Okay, so to begin, if you've downloaded the starter files, you should find them in your download path, which is basically around, for me, it's in the downloads. And then once you extract it, you can just open this with whatever text editor that you prefer to use. And mine is Visual Studio Code, which will open up right here. So let's go through this folder structure a bit. We have the design files, which contains the active states. As you can see right there, you have the desktop design, we have the desktop preview, and finally the mobile design, which for now is going to be our most important because we're going to be building this mobile first. Okay, and probably I might decide to use Tailwind CSS, but I'm not quite sure yet. Probably this is a simple enough project. I can just use vanilla CSS. And we have our images, and we have the BG Pattern Svg, and let me show you what that is. If you look, oops, wrong zoom. If you look in this project, there's a very slight background color, like a pale blue and a white. So this pattern behind this, the white box right here, that's the BG pattern. And then we have our favicon. Of course, we have the icon check, which is this icon, the green tick, and then we have the icon slider, which are these inside our slider, and then we have the pattern circles, which are on our heading. So that's basically it for this folder structure. And then you have the git ignore. We have our index.html, which is our most important file. We have the readme, and you can go through this if you've never done any challenge from Frontend Mentor before. And then finally, we have our style guide, which contains all our colors. It contains the device which that these designs were made using. And then we have our body. Our font size is going to be 15 pixels by default. And then we have the font family that we're going to use, which is called Manrope. So I just want this to save, and then right away I'm going to create a style.css file. And remember, this is inside the root. It's in the root of this folder where I've created the style CSS. And then I'm going to go into my my index.html, and I'm going to grab this. I'm going to cut this out, and I'm going to paste it inside here. Remember, this attribution is for this section down below, which is basically like the footer of this project. Now remember that if you have a website, or if you have a portfolio, if you have a GitHub account, you can link it inside here. And I'm just going to pass in my website and then enter your name here. So enter my name, and then just basically that's it for this attribution section. And then once I do that, then I should remember to link my style sheet at the top. So link href into style CSS like that, which is now targeting our style sheet. Now I don't want to save this file yet because I have format on save, and what would happen is basically this, which I don't want to happen. So I'm not going to save it for now. I'm just going to structure everything out, and then once we finish structuring, then I'm going to save it. And I'm also going to remove this comment and remove this comment. And let me go over to fonts.google.com and grab this font. Okay, it's called Manrop. We are grabbing the 600 and 800 fonts. I can close this window. I switched to light theme a bit because I was doing some testing using Tailwind CSS. Okay, so we are on, we are grabbing the 600 and we are grabbing the 800, was it? Okay, and then I recently learned that it's not a good idea to use the import, so I'm going to use the link tag instead. So I'm going to copy this, and then inside my index HTML below my style sheet, notice that this is below my style sheet, and this is deliberate because HTML evaluates everything from top to bottom. So I want our style sheet to be evaluated first, and then this to be evaluated after our style sheet. Okay, so once you do that, then I'm just going to go above this, and I'm going to say for the body, I'm going to have a font dash family of Manrop and a fallback of sans serif, like that. So save this, and then let's begin structuring our data. Okay, so actually let me just open this up in not videos, where was it? It was in downloads, and it's this one right here. I want to open this design, okay, on this window so that I have it to my side as I'm styling it. And actually let me close this window as well, and now I can open this up. Okay, so let's see what we have as that still opens. So we have a simple H1, we have the circle, so let's create that. Now let me remove this. Okay, so I'm going to say right under my body, I'm going to create a div with a class of container. I'm using Emmet, that's why I'm able to do this. Instead of writing it all out, I can just do dot Thomas, and it will create a div with a class of Thomas. So that's easy enough. If you want an ID, you can say ID hashtag. Okay, so inside this div with the class of container, I want this to wrap over everything. Do I? No, I don't want it to wrap over everything. Actually, you know what, let me remove this actually, and let me return a header with a class of header. And inside this header, I'm going to return an H1 that says this, simple traffic. And then below this, I'm going to return a paragraph that says this. Move this down. Okay, so that we have that. Fantastic. And then inside this header, I want to add our circles icon. So I'm going to add it at the top. And this will be coming from images / pattern circles, like that. And I'm going to give this image a class of header. Let me say header dash circles. That should be fine. Dash circles should be fine. And then now for all of this, I want this to be inside a div with a class of container, like that. So I'm going to grab these lines like that, move that upwards. And then for this, I'm going to say this should be inside a div with a class of title, like that. And this is going to be an H4 or H5, let me say H4, saying page views, and these page views are 100K, should be. Let me see, where's my design? 100K page views, okay. And then what else? Let's say after the page views, we have our input. So let me create that. So I'm going to say input with the type of range, like that, with the name of range, with the ID of range, like that. And then below this, we're going to create our toggle. So I'm going to just say toggle here. We're going to grab this from the repository so that I don't have to do it all again. It took me quite a while, so I don't want to repeat it. And then I'm going to say, I am going to explain it, so don't worry. Below this is going to be our toggle, correct. And then below this, I'm going to create a UL with 3 list items, like that. The first one is going to say this, the second one is going to say this, and then finally the third one is going to say email reports, like that. If you're wondering how I'm moving this up and down, I'm just holding down the Alt key and pressing the up down buttons on my keyboard. Okay, and then this is finally going to be a button. So I'm going to say button. I'm going to give it a class of btn, and then the text is just going to save that. Okay, so once I save this, then we should see something on the screen. let's see. Oops, I have to open this up with live server, of course, forgetting the most important part. And we have this, and our input with the type of range works nicely. Okay, so that's looking nice. I'm going to place this to the side because we're styling it mobile first. And then I've just remembered that I need to add my image, which is the pale blue background. So I'm going to say, I'm going to create a div here. Div, give this a class of bg-pattern, like that. And then I'm going to create an image with a class of bg pattern-img, like that. The source for this is going to be images / bg pattern, and the alt, I'm not going to give this an alt attribute. Okay, I'm just going to leave it empty. That's what I mean, because if this image fails to load, then I don't want any text to be shown on the screen. Okay, because it provides some really bad user experience. So once I save that, then you notice that our background image appears like that. So everything is looking nice, or at least a semblance of nice. So let's begin our styling. And actually, before I begin our styling, let me just bring in my toggle. So I'm going to go into my repository. And once again, the link is github.com/sancthomas/interactive pricing component. And I'm going to go inside my index HTML. And I'm going to grab my toggle, which is where is the toggle? This is the toggle. So just grab this div, copy that, and I'm going to paste it inside here. Actually, I can just remove this, paste it inside here and save that. And then I'm going to go into my my slider CSS, sorry. So slider.css, and I'm going to grab everything inside here. So everything inside here, it's quite a lot. Copy this, and then inside my style CSS, I'm going to paste it. Let me paste it here. So that's quite a lot, and I'm going to go through this in a moment. So, but once I save that and I open this to the side, where is my browser? Now that we're done with this repository, I think I can close it. And as you can see, now we have our toggle. Okay, we have our toggle and we have our slider. So that's looking nice. That's looking nice. And in case you're wondering why this is behaving like this, probably this is a very good practical example as to why we add the global style. Let me show you what I mean. Usually what you see happening is that we add a star here and we say margin 0 and padding 0 and then box sizing border box. So once I save this, notice that this will reset and it will now go back to normal. So let me save that and look at that. That's because there are some HTML elements that come with default margin and padding. So you usually want to reset everything first before you begin adding your own padding. Otherwise, you know, everything starts going outside of the box, which is it can become really annoying, especially if you don't know why it's happening. So let me add a few global styles here, and I'm going to say for the image, I want the max width to be 100%. You notice that we have a horizontal scroll bar inside here. That's because this image is too big for this window. So I want to reduce this by saying it has to take up 100% of the window it is in. So once I save this, then this should disappear, and look at that. The image is shrunk or shrunken just a bit. And then let me say disable the ULs. Let me remove this padding here and show you what I mean. We have bullets on our unordered list, as you can see. So I want to say for the ULs, I just want to say list style type to be none, which will remove them. And of course, as you can see, once again, the ULs have a default padding of 30 pixels on the left and right, or on the left, I think so. So we have to add this so that it doesn't misbehave once again. And on the body, I'm just going to say text align center by default, which will bring everything to the center, as you can see, looking nice, looking nice. And finally, let's begin. Actually, I want to deal with this button first because it's the easiest actually. So I'm going to target the button by saying for the btn class, I want to give this a background color of, let me go into my style guide MD, and I'm going to get what's the color? What's the color? Is it this one? We're just going to do some trial and error. Grab this and paste it inside here. Let's see. That's the color correct. And I'm going to say that I want a border radius of 30 pixels all around. Let me add some padding of 10 pixels on the top and bottom and 20 pixels on the left and right. Let me change the text color to white. And remember that buttons and inputs, they don't take up the default font family. So you have to specify it. I don't know whether you can see it. So I'm going to say font family, set this to inherit, which basically means that it's going to inherit whatever the font family on the body is, or on the parent element is. So I'm going to save that, and we have that. It doesn't inherit, so let me just specify that. I'm going to say manrope and say sans serif, like that. And then I'm going to say remove the border. I'm going to say 2 pixels and solid, and the same dark blue color or navy blue, whatever that color is, so that we have that. And I'm going to say cursor pointer, right, so that we have a cursor pointer on hover. Okay, and then once we do this, let me add a hover effect. So I'm going to grab this, copy it down right there, and I'm going to say that for the hover state, then I want the background color to be transparent, like that. And then I want the text color, because I don't want the text color to be white on hover. Let me save this and show you what I mean. Look at that, because we can't read it. So for the text color, I'm just going to set it to the navy blue color, so HSL, and do this, so that we are going to have this. And then let me add a transition. So I'm going to say transition all the properties by 0.4 seconds. Let's do that. And look at that, it's looking nice. Finally, let me just add a box shadow. So I'm going to say box shadow of 0 on the horizontal and 5 pixels on the vertical, and let's say 10 pixels on the blur. We're not going to add a spread, so I'm going to say HSL and just do the same color here. And what I like about this HSL is because I can add an alpha value here without having to specify an alpha value here. I don't know whether that makes sense. You can see we have a very slight box shadow. Let me just add the alpha here. Nothing really changes, it's basically the same thing. If I change this to 0.9, it should be more visible, but it doesn't really matter. So we are done with our button. That's basically it. That's what we're going to have for our button. Now let me deal with this image and this image as well. So what we want to happen is we want our paragraph to be, not our paragraph, but our heading and our paragraph as well, of course, to be positioned above these two images. So we need this image to go above this image, and then we need to bring these above the two images. So that's easy to do. We can just say use CSS positioning, so position relative and position absolute. So I'm going to go into the parent element, and the parent element for this is what is it? The parent element for this is the header. For our circles image is the header, and then the parent element for our BG pattern, which is this pale blue, is our body. So let me save this. I can go and target the BG pattern. So right below this, I'm going to say dot BG dash pattern, and I'm going to say position absolute, like that. And you'll notice that everything goes up, right? Now we want our circles, because our circles are now appearing behind this. So let me just say give this a z index of, let me say -10, which will go even further behind than the circles, and then the circles will appear. So save that. As you can see, the z index is basically it defines the closeness to which you are to elements when you view them on a browser. So a negative value pushes them further away, and a positive value brings them closer. So if I were to specify this to 1, for example, then I should expect that our circles disappear, because the background pattern would now be closer to us in terms of viewing it than the circles. So let me save this and watch what happens. But because we want our circles to appear, I'm just going to say -10. And this -10 is important because, for a reason I'm going to explain. The same reason basically, but you're going to see in practical examples when we reach there. Okay, so once we do this, then I want these circles to position absolute as well, but with relative to the header. So I'm going to target the header here, and I'm going to say dot header, and I'm going to say position relative. Remember, if you want to position elements absolute within other elements, then the parent elements should have a position of relative, position property of relative. Now, if you're wondering why I didn't do the same for this, is because the body is always positioned relative, and this, the BG pattern, is relative to the body. Okay, so let me save that. And then once I position the header as relative, then I want to go into the header and I want to target the header circles. Remember, we added this class. So I'm going to say dot header dash circles like that. And I'm going to say position absolute as well, like that. And notice what happens. Now everything goes, you know, it goes above our circles. Now notice that our this circles image is positioned a bit to the right, and that's we can reset that a bit. We can say let's position it to be the left by 50%. Okay, and then we can say transform and translate on the x-axis by minus 50%, which should now center it back like that. And then because I want this, I want the image to go behind our text, I'm going to add a z-index of -1, no longer -10, but -1. And notice what happens. Now it goes behind our text. Okay, so that's looking nice. And of course, remember that I said this was very specific. The reason is because if I give this z-index of -1, watch what happens. Oh, that's okay. That's not what I expected. But just to be on the safe side, let me place it back to -10. What I expected to happen was that I expected our circles image to go behind the background image once again, but that didn't happen, so that's okay. That's okay. So now let's begin styling our header, and I'm going to say for the header I want a padding. Let me say padding of 50 pixels on the top and bottom, and let's say 20 pixels on the left and right, like that. And then once again, you see that our header is basically these two items, the heading and the paragraph, as well as our background image. And notice how this also moves down. I just want to move it up a bit, and I can go back inside here and say on the top, let it be on the top by, let's say, 60 pixels. That's too much. That's too much because our padding is 50 pixels. Actually, let me increase this to 100, not 1,000, 100. Excuse me. 100. 100 looks doable. Let me reduce the padding bottom, and I'm going to reduce this to 50 pixels so that this moves upward just a bit. Okay, and then I'm going to increase this to 60 pixels so that it should move right around there. Okay, that's looking nice. Let's look at our design, and you can see that it's rhyming with our design. Now let me target this background image because I want to increase its height just a bit. It's a little small. So inside the BG pattern, I can say BG dash pattern, and it's called BG pattern img dash img. I think that's the class that I gave it, BG pattern dash img, like that. Or you might as well do this. You can just target the BG pattern and say the image inside, because it only has one image. It's the only element inside the class of BG pattern. And then you can say let me increase the height to, let's say, 400 pixels. Okay, 400 is a bit much. Let's reduce it to 300. 300, almost nice. Let me see. Yep, let me open my tab here. 300 is almost nice. I think that should be fine. 300 pixels. Okay, and then once we do that, what do we want to do next? We want to change the background color of this H1. So let me go inside my header. So inside the header, I want to target the H1, set this color to the very dark blue. So HSL, this one, like that. And then let me see. This paragraph and this text and this all have the same color, right? They all have the same text color. So let me see if I can specify it on the body. Where is it? On the body here, I'm going to grab the color, and let me grab it from the style guide, and I'm going to say the color should be the text, the grayish blue. So this one right here. Grab this, copy it, and paste it inside here, and there we go. So we have our color right there. And then now if you want to change the color of any element, then you can just target the element individually instead of having to specify it in our CSS as a group, as a global variable. Okay. And I've just noticed that I didn't add our tick icons here, our check marks. So let me do that. Inside our list items, there should be an image here. And this image should be coming from /images /icon check, like that. So I'm going to copy this. Actually, I'm going to copy this, paste it here and here, like so. And it should appear. So looking very nice, looking nice. And remember, images are inline elements. That's why this doesn't break. Okay. So let's continue styling it. Let's go into our container. And I've just noticed that this paragraph is above this paragraph instead of being on the same line. So let me restructure our HTML, and I'm going to go and grab this text inside here, cut it out, and then add another paragraph and just paste that in. And this should happen. So that's looking better. Now let's go inside our container, which is, remember, it houses everything from 100K page views all the way to the bottom on our button. So I'm going to target the container, and inside here I'm going to say for the dot container, I'm going to say the background color should be white, the BG color should be white, like that. And then I'm going to say add some padding of 20 pixels all around. And then to move it away from the edges, I'm going to add a margin, and I'm going to say the margin should be, let me add a margin on the top of let's say, actually there's no need for the margin top. This is quite enough. So I'm going to say 0 on the top, and I'm going to say 50 pixels on the left and right. And actually let me do 20 pixels on the left and right, and then let me do 50 pixels on the bottom, like that. So this moves inwards just a bit. Let me increase this to 30, like that. Let me add a border radius, and I will say border radius should be 10 pixels. And then let me add a box shadow, and I'm just going to copy whatever box shadow I had on the button. Where was my button? Grab this, copy that, and then inside my container I'm just going to paste this, but I'm going to change the color, and this color is going to be 0 0 and 0, like that. 0% 0%, like that. Okay, so that's what we want, but reduce this to about 0 0.1, 0 0.2, 0. Let's increase the blur radius. Let me increase this to 20. Let me increase this, the vertical, let me say 8 pixels. Okay, so that we have that, it's a bit more visible and it's looking nice. Okay, so inside this container, what do I need to do? Let me increase the padding on the top and bottom for each, and I'm going to increase this to 30, and then just reduce 30. This should be 30, and then it should be 20 pixels on the left and right. Okay, I think that's looking better. And remember, we have already applied our styling for this, so that's why this looks like this. And just to show you where this is coming from, if you check for the class of the class of name, we have a span, and that's where this is coming in. Okay, I'm going to go through that in a moment if I do remember. But what we need to do is target this h4. So I'm going to say for the container, I remember I gave it a class of title, and I want to target the h4, and I'm going to say text transform to uppercase, like that. Okay, let's reduce the font size, and I'm going to say font size 15 pixels. Let's say 14 pixels. Okay, yeah, 14 should be nice. 14 should be fine. And I placed this on the wrong area. Oh, I didn't even place it inside an element. Let me cut that out. And then below this input, I'm going to add a paragraph with the class of price, like that, and just paste this in. Actually, yeah, this should be correct. And this, I remember the price was $16. Let me just confirm. Yeah, so $16. And this $16 is styled differently from the /month. So I'm going to grab this and place it inside a span so that I can target it differently and just style it differently. The span is also an inline element. Okay, So once we do that, let's see the container. Let me target the span next because this is already done. And I'm going to say inside my style CSS, go below this, target the container and target the paragraph with the class of price, right? Let's do that first. And I'm going to say font size, font dash size should be, let's say 30 pixels. And then let's set the text color to our very dark navy blue. So this right here. Okay. And then now let's target the span. Oh, wait a minute. The span was what? This was the span. Okay, so let me change this up. Let me grab this and place the span inside the /month. Just like that. Nothing should change really. But when we target the container here, we target the class, excuse me, we target the paragraph with the class of price and the span, then I want to reduce this font size to, let's say 16 or rather 15. And then once I reduce it to 15 pixels, then I want to change the text color back to the gray on the body, like that. It's looking nice. That's looking actually nice. And then let me go above this and say display flex because I want this to be centered. Remember, it's centered on the design. It's centered. What's this centering called? Horizontal centering. It's centered horizontally. So I'm going to say align item center. Really, align item center, like that, and then bring it back to the center by saying justify content to the center, like that. Now notice that we need to add some spacing between this /month and the price, but I can't go to this span and say, let me see if I can say margin right. Is it margin right? No, margin left of 10 pixels. Okay, so we can do that. Another way you can do that is using the is in HTML by saying ampersand and saying NBSP and then a semicolon, sorry, which inserts a non-breakable line space. That's what it is, right? A character entity representing a space. So that's basically what it is. But we are able to add it using margin in CSS, so you don't need to do that. But it's nice to know in case you come across it in someone else's code. And then notice that we've already done the styling for our toggle. So we don't need to do that. All we need to do now is target our UL. So I'm going to say for the container, I'm going to target the UL and I'm going to say, actually, let me add a margin bottom of 30 pixels to push it away from this button. So save that, and I'm going to target the LIs. So I'm going to say container UL LI, and I'm going to say margin of, let's say, 5 pixels on the top and bottom and 0 on the left and right. Space them out just a bit. So would you look at that? So this is basically done for our mobile design. And let me reduce this font size. Inside the H1, I'm going to say font dash size, reduce this to 24 pixels. Too small, 30 pixels. 28. That should be better. And then once we do this, let me go over now the code that we have for the input range, right? Okay, let's start with the toggle actually. So this is our toggle that we added in our HTML. Where is it? This is our toggle. So deal with the class of toggle. We have a label that says monthly billing with a class of name. So that's basically what this is. And then we have the an input with the type of checkbox. That's basically what is styled to look like this. So the input with the type of checkbox is styled to look like this. And then we have another label for the which has a div with a class of ball, which is this ball that moves to the left and right. And then we have another label with the class of name saying yearly billing. And then we have a span saying minus 25%, which is our discount. Okay, so let me go over our CSS, and we're going to say we are displaying flex on the toggle, right? Displaying flex on toggle so that this it becomes a flex item, so that you can justify content to the center, so that you can center it like this. And then we're adding some margin on the top and bottom, so that's basically this and this. And then we have a checkbox which is saying display none because we don't want it to appear. If I were to remove this, then notice what happens. So we are checking that if the checkbox is checked, then move it to the right. And if it is not checked, then move it to the left. So if I were to remove this, notice what happens, even though I'm clicking the checkbox. So we don't want this to happen, right? That's why we say display none here. But I'm going to leave this in just for a moment. And I'm going to say we have a class of label. So I just position relative. We are adding a background color of this, which is basically the background color for this. Notice that. See that? So that's our background color for our toggle. We're also displaying flex on this. We're adding some default stylings, margin, padding, and the cursor pointer for each of this. And then we're saying that when the label is active, that's basically when I click it. Notice that. It means that when I click it, then I want this color to appear. So that's why we have this active pseudo class. And then we have the class of name, which is basically our labels, the two labels, the yearly billing and the monthly billing. And then this span inside the name is our discount that is shown here in the red color. And then we have the ball. So we're just basically styling the ball. As you can see, we are positioning it absolute within the position relative. Where was it? Within the label, which is position relative, the parent element. And then we're saying we have wanted 2 pixels from the top and then 2 pixels from the left. So that's this tiny space that you can see. And then we're saying the border radius should be 50 pixels. That's why it is rounded. And then we're saying the width should be 22 pixels and the height should be 22 pixels. And then we're saying that transform it by 0.5% in linear form. That means to the left and right, as you can see. So that's looking nice. And then we are saying that when it is checked, that's why I didn't comment this out once again. We are checking that when the checkbox is checked, then we add this styling to it. So that's basically what controls this moving to the left and right. Okay. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to say display none on this once again so that it disappears. And then now for the input with the type of range, we're just saying that we want it to, we don't want the default input type range to appear because we want to add some default stylings of ourselves. As you can see, we're saying the width of 100%. And this is important because of what? Because Firefox needs a width to work with. Okay. And then we're just adding that for the focus, then it should not give us an outline. We are adding some cross-browser compatibility. So that's basically what all of this is. And then we are styling it, as you can see. The MOZ, I think it's for Mozilla or something. The WebKit, I know it's for Safari browsers, basically Apple. And then everything else inside here. Sorry. What I can advise you is if you want to know how all of this works, then just go ahead and comment everything out. Just comment everything out and then begin uncommenting it slowly by slowly so that you see what happens. That's a good way to do it in case you don't understand anything. So that's basically it because we're adding some cross-browser compatibility, which is basically the same styles over and over again, which I don't want to go over. So that's that. And now all we need to do is scale it up for bigger screens. As you can see, we don't want it to appear like this. So right away, I'm going to start adding my media queries. I'm going to go to the button and I'm going to say add media. So we're going to use the media rule to add our media queries. And I'm going to say for a minimum width, min dash width, a minimum width of 760 pixels, which is basically for tablets. Then remember that we added a fixed height to this. So on tablets and above, then I want to remove the fixed height. So I'm going to say that for the BG pattern, and remember it was in the image, then I want to say the height should go back to auto, like that. Okay. And then we want to fix this a bit. Remember that the design files that we are provided with by Frontend Mentor, they are designed on a 1440 pixel screen. And mine currently is at 1600. So that's why this happens. If I had a 1440 pixel screen, then it would be fine. But just to fix that, I'm going to say at media, and min width of 1440 pixels. Oops. Then I want to say that I want to target the BG pattern, and I want to target the image, and I'm going to say the width of the image should be 1600 pixels. So let's save that. Let's see. And it goes all the way to the end now. So that's looking nice. Next, I want to target our container, which is basically this white rectangle that we have currently. And for a min width of 760 pixels, once again, I'm going to say that for the container, I'm going to say the max width for this should be, let's say 500 pixels. Reduce it just a bit. Okay, and then once we reduce it, then I want to position it to the center, take it back to the center, and I'm going to say, what was I going to say? I'm going to say margin of auto, which will break a bit because remember, did we add margin here? I don't think so. Let me see. Yes, we did add some margin. Let me just confirm what margin we had on the container. We had a margin of 50 pixels at the bottom. So let me add that. I'm going to say 0 auto and 50 pixels like that. Okay. And then what else do we need to do? We need to display this and this as a flex item so that this goes to the left and the button goes to the right. Let me just confirm that is indeed the design. Make this bigger, as you can see. So this goes to the left and the button goes to the right. Let me do that. We need to restructure our HTML a bit. Now we want to say that this UL and the button should be inside a div. Let me give this div a class of list like that. So let me save that. And then below this, I'm just going to say that for the container, I want to target the list class and I want to say display flex. And I want to say, let me save this so that you can see what's happening. See what happens right there. Okay, so and I'm going to say align item center and then justify content to the not center but space between so that they go end to end like that. And then remember that on the UL we have some margin of 30 pixels. That's why this looks, it's not perfectly centered. So let me correct that, and I'm going to say that for the container UL, then I want margin bottom to be 0. Okay, so that we have that. That's looking better. And then I want the UL to text align left so that it now goes to the left. The list items, and I'm going to say text align left. Nope, not last, but text align left like that, looking very nice. And then the final thing that we need to do is we want to grab this and move it here, but we're not going to grab this. Instead, we're going to display none on this when we get to bigger screens, and then we're also going to display block for the other element that we're going to place here. So basically what I mean is I'm going to go inside here, inside my HTML, and I'm going to grab this paragraph, the class of price. So I'm going to copy this, and then inside my title, I'm going to paste it in. Okay, so that we're going to have 2 of them. Notice that we have 2 of them. And then what I need to do is just, play around with some media queries and some styling. So that I'm going to say where I had the class of title, right below this, I'm going to say that for the container, for the title, I want to target the price like that. So basically what I'm saying is I'm targeting this one without targeting the one below it. Where is it? Without targeting this. So that's basically what I'm saying. And I'm going to say that for this, then I'm going to say display none like that. And notice that it disappears. Okay, it disappears because I'm thinking about this being built mobile first. And then I'm going to say that for about 768 pixels for our media query right here, and I'm going to say that for the container, for the title, and I want to target the class of price, I'm going to say display block, so that when we get to widths greater than 768 pixels, then it should appear like that. And then I'm going to say that when we get to 768 pixels, then I want this one to disappear. And I can do that easily by just saying for the container, I want to target the class of price like that, and I'm going to say display none, and it should disappear like that. So basically now the second one disappears and the first one appears. And then when we get to smaller screens, the opposite happens. See that? That's looking nice. That's how you just play around with HTML. And then inside here, I want to target the container title class, container.title like that. And I'm going to display this as a flex box. So I'm going to say display flex like that. Notice what happens, and I'm going to say align item center. And then justify content to space between, so that they go end to end once again, so that we have that. Would you look at that? That's looking amazing. It's looking very nice, very nice. And as you can see, it scales down and it scales up, very responsive. And now what are we remaining with? Let me just add a bit more padding on this, on the container. So I'm going to say that for the container inside here, I'm going to say add a padding of 50 pixels all around. Okay. And then I'm going to say margin on the top, add a margin on the top of 20 pixels. Let's say 30. And then let me target this H1 and increase its size so that I'm going to say, what was the H1? Was it, I've forgotten where it was, inside the header, right? So inside the header, I want to target the H1, increase this font size to, let's say, 36 pixels, make it very big. Okay. Okay, that's looking amazing. Now, what the final thing that I want to do is I want to add a final media query for around, let me say, media min width of 1280 pixels, which is large screens basically. And I'm going to say for the container, just increase the max width a bit. So I'm going to say max width, increase this to 700 pixels. That's ugly. Let's say 600. 600 is much better looking, so that we have this, so that it's not so small on small screens and yet it's not so big on big screens. So yeah, I think that's basically going to be it. Now, one thing that you've noticed is that I've not added the what's it called, the images on the slider. Let me show you what I mean. There's two images on the slider. I've not added them because I found it very hard to toggle it so that it moves along with the mouse clicks. So I decided to leave it out. And then I also didn't do this. I'm not quite sure how that, like, the spacing is done. If you have, basically what I'm saying is, if you know how to do it, then leave a comment down below or raise an issue in the GitHub repository. Okay, so that's basically going to be it for this project. And once again, remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. But before I go, I've just remembered my YouTube channel is currently flagged as made for kids, so I don't have access to the notification bell, which I'm sure most of you have noticed. And I also don't have access to what's it called, to community posts. So what I usually do is I usually give updates on my Twitter and in my discussion tab on my channel. So be sure to follow me on Twitter as well if you want to get updates of when I'll be going live and when the new videos are going to be released. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.